Welcome to Mining Now, and we're recording live from Imark in Australia, and I'm your host, Roy Slack. And this episode features Mining Pro, and we'll be talking today with Grant Wexel, Executive Director of Mining Pro, and also Darren Lockyer, a board member and business director from MWG Mining. And let's start the show, and Grant, Darren, welcome.
Thanks, Roy.
And thanks, Roy.
And I'd like to start out by getting to know a little bit about both of you. So Grant, tell us about how you got involved in mining and Mining Pro.
Roy, I got involved in the mining industry in the early 2000s, so up around the Mount Isa region and Townsville in northern Australia, which is a fairly famous mining district here. And then I've been in and around the industry ever since, pretty much across all commodities and all aspects of mining. I'm involved in exploration projects, and then obviously with Mining Pro and other businesses we've had in the past is more in the mining services space, working with the majors and helping them operate assets in Australia.
Okay, very good. And Darren, how did you get involved in this industry?
Well, my background was I was a professional athlete for 17 years. I retired in 2011 and decided to move into the corporate world. And Grant had a business at the time. That's where I met Grant. He's been, he's very knowledgeable about the industry. He's got a great network and he's very capable of growing a business. And I was keen to join his team and his company, and so that was in 2011. So we're here today, and obviously I've gained a lot of experience and knowledge about the industry myself.
Now let's talk a little bit about Mining Pro, and Grant, tell us who is or what is Mining Pro? What's it all about?
Yeah, Roy, we set up Mining Pro in 2020. So as Darren just alluded to, we've been in business together since 2011, and then I spent some time based out of Singapore and ended up back in Australia in 2020, and we decided that there was a opportunity in the market for us to start Mining Pro. And Mining Pro's whole business model is built around partnering with mine owners to operate their assets. So it's a little bit of a hybrid between contracting, like traditional mining contractors who come with the equipment and do the work. We don't own the big equipment like they do, but we come in and partner with the owners and help run their production, maintenance, or any part of the mine site.
Well, and I find this my background is in contracting, and we talk a lot about partnerships, and that seems to be, how would I say, foundational to your business and your business approach.
Yeah, it is. I think, I was saying to Darren earlier that you're saying that you're, great partners with someone can be a bit cliche, but it genuinely is our business model. We've got a lot of great contacts, especially in the coal industry in Australia, and partnering up with those people to operate assets together is, it is all based around that partnership. We literally integrate with their team, so they'll have an org chart that says, here's our management team and we're going to do this, and we want you guys to do this, and we work out how we're going to gel together and get the best outcome. So that's really the foundational model for the business, and then it's just deciding on a case-by-case basis at each project how much we do and how much the client wants to do effectively.
Yeah, and coming from, as I said before, high-performance sport, team is everything, and that's always been something that I've telling Grant that, when we're in partnership, that we, teamwork is how you become, the better we work as a team, the more successful you are. So it's the same. You transfer those skills over to the mine site and you get good outcomes.
Let's talk about our heavy industry tour, brought to you by Savannah Equipment, supplying mining equipment worldwide, and Geograph, solving customer challenges through innovation and design, higher performing parts, engineered solutions, on-time spare parts supply, and high-quality repairs. We are heading to events across North America and Australia and filming episodes on location. Email us at info@crownsman.com to be part of Crownsman's Heavy Industry World Tour. The metals and mining industry bears a significant responsibility for meeting the dual challenge of growing demand for resources and rising standards of living from an increasing global population, while also addressing the sustainability goals of the future. Aspen Technology is here to partner with industry leaders and help them achieve those objectives with solutions in areas of advanced process controls and asset performance management that utilize artificial intelligence and machine learning to optimize their mining operations for both profitability and environmental responsibility. With Aspen Tech, you'll not only reduce downtime and improve safety, but also minimize waste, lower emissions, and improve operational efficiencies. Their expert team is always available to provide support and guidance, ensuring that you reach your operational and sustainability goals. Aspen Tech, empowering the metals and mining industry to meet the dual challenge. Learn more at aspentech.com. Bentech Group is an industry leader when it comes to design, engineering, and manufacturing. Bentech specializes in engineered safety and efficiency equipment such as access platforms, heavy-duty workbenches, work stands and trestles, material and equipment storage, and a range of lifting and handling solutions to maximize safety for your personnel. But that's not their only area of expertise. Bentech also supply high-performance OEM replacement parts for mobile equipment. Bentech's rocks mining parts are built better, eliminating downtime and maximizing efficiency. Visit bentechgroup.com.au today to explore their range.
Well, I'm, this is an area that really interests me, and in building those partnerships, maybe you can talk a bit about that. Like, how early do you get into operations? How do you build a partnership like that?
Generally, we're working with fairly, I would say mid-tier or major operators of the asset. So they're usually an existing asset, and they'll decide, in an open cut or open pit, depending on what part of the world you are, mine, it'll come down to how they want to operate the fleets of equipment. So how many, load and haul circuits are there at the mine? How much do you want us to run? We tend to supervise and execute a work plan, but the miner themselves will still be in charge of the mine planning and technical services and all of the statutory elements of running a mine, and we're just sitting underneath their structure to go and execute the work on a daily basis. That's the general model. But in saying that, we have worked with companies to restart mining operations, or they might have changed ownership, or you could go into a completely, greenfield operation and start up once it gets to that production stage. So
would you take a portion of the scope, or do you integrate with the team, or hybrid? It might depend on the project or the operation, I guess.
Correct. Yeah, it's really a hybrid. So we might, at one of our main jobs in Australia, we run about 5 fleets of equipment, so about 350 staff on site, and supervision, project management, training teams, all those type of support services that you need to run a mining operation. Whereas for other, clients, we may take the whole workforce, if you'd like, and run the whole operation, and the client just has the management team above us to focus on the technical components we were talking about. Okay, well,
I might go off script a bit here because some things catch my ear or eye, and I get interested in, and I want to ask, and I ask everybody about this, about safety, because it's something I'm passionate about, and I believe that you're integrating not just support of the owner, but you're integrating safety into their operation as well.
Oh, 100%. I mean, safety is such a massive part of mining operations, and it's, if you think about breaking it down into, there's the people, we got to have a good culture, and a team on site. Darren talked about teamwork before, is critical, and off the back of that, that's a lot of that is what drives the safety behaviours, is having the right culture and everyone's following the the safety rules on site. It's paramount. And again, because we integrate with the owners team, we tend to follow their lead on that. They'll have, often have a set of cardinal rules, or a set of rules that the mine operates by, and we work with them to make sure that's built into the teams that we have on site.
Yeah, safety is a direct reflection of your culture, and that's high performance as well. So I think if you want to be successful in particularly in this industry or any industry, I think safety needs to be at the forefront of all your thinking.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you're preaching to the choir there. That's good to hear. And another thing that I'm interested in is, I have a little bit of experience in open cut, but the majority of my experience is underground. and I think you're working. Are you working in both environments?
Yes, we are. Yeah, underground and open cut.
And what is there any? Are the models the same, or is there anything? Is there a different approach? What are the clients or the owners doing in each?
Look, I think there's a core part that's the same. It's like you got to come to each job with the right team and all the things we just talked about, culture, safety. But I think from an open pit perspective, there's obviously the factor of the equipment. So you talked about a contracting background. We don't come to the projects with the ultra class equipment. Usually, the miner will own the big excavators or shovels and the ultra class trucks, and then we'll support that with ancillary equipment and vehicles and buses and logistics and those type of things. Underground, there's less of that. Underground is about coming with the skilled workforce and the supervision to execute the plan, especially in coal. The client, nearly always owns the longwall. There's a little bit of supplementary equipment, but it's more around, bringing that really skilled workforce to operate the mine underground. That's probably the main difference.
Hey mining enthusiasts, registration for CIM Connect 2024 Vancouver from May 12th to 15th is now open. Last year, this convention had over 6,800 participants from 60 countries, with 1,796 delegates, 702 booths, and 320 presentations. Secure your spot and register now at convention.cim.org. CIM Connect 2024, where quality and innovation define the experience. Hexagon's technology and solutions enable stakeholders across the mining industry to make better decisions faster. Get smarter integrated cloudware sensor software solutions and in-field apps that connect mines to boardrooms in real time. Hexagon offers safer, autonomous, more sustainable open pit and underground mining solutions spanning exploration and planning, safety, and operations. Visit hexagon.com/mining or email info.min@hexagon.com today. Orica Digital Solutions seamlessly connects customers' physical and digital worlds so they can readily understand and optimize operations at every step of the value chain, from exploration to processing. Whether deployed individually or as a whole, Orica Digital Solutions technologies deliver intelligence for open cut and underground mines to make more precise and faster decisions. With a complete, timely, and accurate picture, operations can adapt to improve safety, drive productivity, reduce costs, and environmental impacts. To learn more about Orica Digital Solutions, visit orica.com/digital solutions today.
That segues into another question of mine, because especially when the industry's busy, the challenge is always finding people. And you're staffing up large projects or large operations. What's the labor pool like, and how do you attract people and how do you train people?
Yeah, I think it's been pretty well documented, the skills shortages that we've had in Australia, and I do a fair bit of work in Canada as well. I know they've had similar issues. There is a shortage of highly skilled miners available, and it's a challenge that I think every mine site has, is attracting and retaining the right people. So, right from the time we started the business, we focused on what are we going to be able to do for people to attract and keep them in our business. And that's not just, obviously money is important. Like, what's their salary? You've got to be competitive, but then it's rosters and logistics and how do you get them to and from work safely and as efficiently as possible. The culture we talked about on site, and reward bonus systems and those type of things to keep people engaged. So we're lucky we're, for all intents and purposes, fully manned at all of our projects at the moment. But a lot of work goes into that in the background to be able to do that. There's a lot of projects out there that are actually not in the same position.
I think to add to that, communication with your people is really important too. Just letting them know that you're thinking, caring about them. And so when you're in constant dialogue with them, they feel like they're a part of an organisation. And when people feel like they're a part of something, they tend to be more happy, more productive.
Yeah, I like that point. We often talk in project management about all the technical aspects, but the leadership aspects like communication and transparency and things like that are so important. And so that's I like that point. I'm going to shift gears here because my background is mainly I've been involved in practically every metal except coal, and I guess coal is not a metal in that perspective, but the coal industry is something that you guys have talked about and been involved in, and maybe you can educate me a bit on the industry in Australia and coal in general.
Yeah, happy to, Roy. Look, the coal industry here is, one of Australia's biggest exports. Queensland is predominantly your metallurgical coal, or some people refer to it as hard coking coal, effectively steel making coal. So that's the Queensland has some thermal coal as well, but predominantly it's that premium metallurgical coal. And then in New South Wales, so closer to where we are in Sydney today, up in the Hunter Valley, you've got premium thermal coal for the energy market. So there's a huge industry in New South Wales on that side of things. And we've been working in the industry for about a dozen years in that space together, and it's critical to Australia's economy, and it's also one of the biggest employers in the country as well.
We see some of the negative things about coal from, I think, people that really don't understand not only the importance of it, but all the different things it does. But I see a note here that you host a celebrating coal event, and that sounds very interesting.
Yeah, I think we call it a coal industry event that we host annually, and that kind of came off the back of that. There is some negative perceptions around coal in, I guess, the broader population, obviously not so much in the mining industry itself. And I think a lot of that comes from a lack of awareness and education. And it's something I'm pretty passionate about. So we decided to host the event annually not just for the coal miners, but all the professional services and consultants and advisors and people around the industry, and even get investors and things back in the room, because as I said before, this steel making coal, there's no change to that for decades to come. Like, our Queensland's coal's some of the best in the world, and obviously our iron ore out of Australia is a big factor as well, but all of the steel makers need that product for the steel that develops the world.
So there's obviously it's always a topical point, coal, but there is a little bit to learn about it. But there and there it is. The thermal coal, which we use for power, I think. I think we know that the world is starting to move away from that, but it's going to take a while before we're not relying on that. There's a lot of third world developing countries that still rely on cheap, reliable coal power. So it's one of those things that it's here at the moment, but the coal we need for steel is obviously going to be around for a lot longer.
Yeah, and even the thermal coal products out of Australia are the absolute premium products. So, if as the industry does go away from that over time, if you're getting that coal from Australia, it is a higher quality product than stuff out of Indonesia and other other countries. So I think as the world does wind that back, and there's obviously plenty of targets around that, we're going to see a change in that space. But I think for Queensland's steel making coal, there's decades and decades of work ahead. And we talked before about a lot of jobs, and I think something like we worked quite closely with the Queensland Resources Council on hosting that event recently. I think it's something like $94 billion or something, the total direct and indirect contribution to Queensland alone as a state. So it's a massive industry, and probably incorrectly labelled at times, as being not a good thing, coal mining, whereas we think it's pretty critical to developing the world and the infrastructure we need here in Australia and around the world.
So I want to expand on that a bit, because if I understand the Celebrating Coal event, it's an industry event, and
yes,
and sometimes the public has a different impression than industry does. They see a lot of information which, I'm a little biased, but I would say is incorrect or is slanted negatively towards mining and towards coal. Uh, what what do you think we need to do? And this is a big question, but what do you think we need to do to begin to shift public opinion on mining or on coal specifically?
Yeah, I think in mining in general, I think I mentioned the Queensland Resources Council before. They do a fantastic job here in Australia of promoting the industry as a whole publicly. As effectively a lobbyist or an industry body. And I see we're starting to see some press around the fact that to have these energy transitions and electrification. There's a lot of hype around lithium and all these new battery commodities, and even people like BlackRock, I think, were saying this week that people who are for a green economy need to invest in mining because that's how we get it. So it's actually quite ironic that there's all this noise around mining when mining is actually what we need to achieve all those changes and targets. And then on coal specifically, I think probably as an industry we didn't do a great job of telling that story early enough. And an industry event, yes, everyone's kind of already preaching to the converted. From a public point of view, I think there needs to be more done to educate the broader population on the use of particularly that metallurgical coal for steel making. And I think the governments in Australia haven't really been very vocal about that either. So it's probably not an easy road to turn that around, but I know there's certain people in our industry here that are trying to set up some new bodies and get the word out there more about coal mining.
It's interesting. I tell people that mining isn't the cause of climate change, but mining will be the solution. And whatever we do to reduce, some of the environmental issues we have, we're going to need metals and we're going to need energy to do it. Yep. So yeah, you're preaching to the converted right now. That's for sure. But in terms of the mining outlook, and let's talk about Australia specifically. And you've touched on this a few times, but of course, Australia is a great mining country, and I've had the pleasure of visiting a number of times, usually on the west. But what do you see long term in Australia in terms of mining? What's happening? What are the trends in the industry in your country?
Well, yeah, very similar to Canada. I spend time in Canada every year. Like, mining is a massive industry for Australia. So I think going forward that will remain the case, but we're just seeing some changes as to which metals and which commodities are, the focus. Like lithium has been a huge focus in Western Australia. You just talked about going to the West, and there's been a huge amount of M&A activity over there, and Australia's richest person, Gina Rinehart, has been making plays for the lithium miners. So there's real demand there for that. But then you've got the two huge industries are coal on the East Coast and iron ore on the West Coast that, other than natural gas, they're by far the dominant exports for us. And then obviously you've still got the traditional, there's plenty of gold miners in Western Australia and copper miners and all those kind of things. So I think, mining is going to remain a focus for Australia. It's just going to be this shift in direction towards these critical minerals. That's the main trend at the moment.
And we talk a lot about sustainability, which means a lot of different things. Certainly the communities we work in and how we impact them and the environment. There's focus on that in most mining jurisdictions.
Oh, of course. And Australia is probably, as far as environmental standards for our operations and the amount of, red tape in Australia to be able to start a project, let alone continue to operate one. I think we've got, some of the highest standards in the world. And then it's just about the communities that we work in and the impact on those. There's a lot of actually, traditional mining towns in Australia where the towns are literally supported by mining. There was just a big announcement that Glencore are going to be closing down one of their mines in Mount Isa that's been there for, many decades. And there was a lot of talk about supporting the town beyond that and what other players are going to come into the space, because mining's the lifeblood of a lot of these communities.
Yeah. No, I certainly remember a couple of visits to Kalgoorlie, and yeah, there's towns that are depend on mining for the quality of life of their people. Simple as that.
Yeah, well, Kalgoorlie is a good one because it was always the gold town, and still is, but a lot of this lithium stuff is happening in and around Kalgoorlie as well. So it's booming over there.
I think what you mentioned before, Roy, about mining is part of the solution. It's just getting that strategic game plan together that transitions us into the next phase. Mining's still going to be around, but it's just the different minerals, the different commodities we're going to mine that's going to help the planet.
And the different, some of the technologies that are happening now, I mean, certainly battery-operated equipment and reducing ventilation requirements for underground operations, autonomous. What do you guys see, or what are you looking at from Mining Pro's perspective in terms of some of the technology that's happening?
Yeah, well, we're probably, in terms of autonomous equipment, we're a bit once removed from that. That's the mine owner is, the one who's looking at that for that really ultra class equipment. So for us, it's about, how can we support them in that transition with a workforce that is adaptable in and around that, support the operations going forward. There's always going to be parts of that aren't autonomous. We've seen a lot of that in Western Australia, the big iron ore mines over there. And then, for us, it's more about, we're a very people focused business, but where we can use technology to get a better outcome on our projects, we will.
That leads me into my next question about, we talked a little bit about the future of mining, but what's the future of Mining Pro look like? What do you guys have in mind over the next few years? How are you going to evolve?
Look, I think a key thing for us is with all the changes that have been happening in the coal industry, there's been a lot of change of ownership away from some of the really major global miners to some, specific single mine ownership or, mid-tier capped companies focused on coal, even some kind of large investors from outside Australia coming in trying to buy assets. We're talking to our clients about, well, so far we've been able to partner with you up to a certain level. The next evolution for us is to actually be able to run an operation for them. So they sit back as the owner and obviously sell the product, but we actually come in with a management team right up to the mine manager to run the full operation, outsourced on their behalf. So I think that's probably one of the main things we're focused on over the next few years. But in the meantime, we've got plenty of new projects where we're starting into next year. So it's just about growing the business and keeping those fundamentals right around our culture and our team and all the things we talked about earlier.
That leads me to another question I had, and I forgot to ask you, but you talked about operations and you talked about projects. Is there a certain portion of what portion of your work is in operating mines and what portion is in developing mines per se?
Look, it's nearly all in operating mines for us. Okay. That's where we come in. Is Mining Pro will come in once there is the mine's in operation. So if it was a new project, it would be after construction, and that's probably the earliest point we'd be talking to our client would be about what's your plan on how you want to operate the asset. Are you going to be a full owner operator? Are you going to go to a contractor, or do you want to look at our model, which is to partner up together and work out how we're going to execute it together?
And you're looking at the way I understand it, you could do everything from from the maintenance to the operation to running a turnkey is where you're going to be able to offer the full gamut to clients.
Yeah, correct. Oh, in Australia, to run the full operation, there's some statutory requirements to be the coal mining operator. So we've put together a business model to be able to do that, which means, effectively we offer a full turnkey solution for a client who doesn't want to take on that responsibility and doesn't want to be a large employer and doing all of the execution on the ground. So that's that's where we're headed.
Before we finish up the show, I'd just like to give each of you an opportunity to close out with anything additional you'd like to leave with the audience. And Darren, can we start with you?
Look, I think, Mining Pro, as Grant's articulated, we're here to partner, and not every mine site or every company operates the same. And what we offer, and we're willing to, go into together as a partnership. We understand what our role and responsibility is, and what's important is that we execute that with high performance, and we communicate with our partner. That's another critical part. So that's that whole aspect of what I talked about high performance team, around what makes a high performance team successful. So I think that's what Mining Pro's focus is. We've got the resources with people, we've got some resources with equipment. We can come in and tailor-made to what you need, what you require, and we will do our part to the best of our ability. And we're there together to reflect, to hopefully reflect on each other in a really positive way.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think and we just have that flexibility as well. It's not a one size fits all model. Literally every mine is different. We talked about open cut and underground, and then there's just such a variety of ways that people have structured to run their assets, and where they get equipment from, and where they get contracting or people from. So we're more than happy to sit down with our clients and discuss the different ways that we can do that. And then once we get on the ground, that's where we are wanting to do all those things Darren talked about. And ultimately that has to show up in performance. So if production is good, safety is good, and the miner is making lots of money, then we're doing our job.
Well, very, like I said, personally for me, very interesting, and I'm sure interesting for the audience too. So Grant and Darren, thank you so much for joining us on Mining Now and giving us some insight into Mining Pro and exciting operations and an exciting future. And thank you to our audience for tuning in to another great episode of Mining Now.